Good. All right, as it is 7 o'clock, we will officially call this meeting of the Bear Island City Council to order. If the council has had time to review the minutes from last month's meeting and the claims for payment, I'll entertain a motion. Second. Motion and second to approve the minutes from last month's meeting as well as the claims for payment. Any further discussion?
I just had a quick question about the two legal fees. If you, like, the first page, $22,553, and the second page, $2,220.50. Offhand, if they're for 1060 Highway Avenue, or is that for some of the other?
Both. There's
Okay.
some of that in there, and then there's a bunch of like other fines for
Okay.
traffic stuff.
If I could follow up with that, then are we keeping track of that separately so we can assess that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, I have a separate file.
Yeah, there should be an itemized.
Yep.
I would suspect some of that too is, as they are our city attorney, any fees that would be with any criminal charges that would come. Including them as well.
Yeah, we should assess, at least, I don't know if we can assess for the criminal, but we should be able to assess for the.
Yeah, because the two different.
Yes,
The
yes, yes,
residential
yeah,
stuff.
you're correct.
Yeah, we have it, it's itemized and it's on a list and it's which one's which, each fee says which one's which.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Open forum, anyone here to discuss a matter not currently on the agenda for this evening? Ms. Mary, the floor is yours.
May I stand?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to give you this book. This was given to the Cultural Center by Mr. Skalbach. And it is called 13 Ways to Kill a Community. And it's a really good read.
So
But
this is what you want us not to do, correct?
I just want to add in. But one of the chapters deals with not keeping the community upgraded, meaning houses that need painting, junk in front of houses. Where the cultural center is, people either, like this last weekend, we had an artist reception, and people came from Granite Falls, Montevideo, Fairfax, Wilmer, and it looks great unless you have to go through town. There's that cultural center block. There's a gray house, I think it was Mr. Stovern who used to own it. He sold it. Right now, there are 3 washing machines sitting on the front porch. There's 2 overstuffed couches sitting in the backyard, covered in snow. Trash is all over. It used to be, it's, Jeff, do you remember Ada Bettendorf?
Mhm.
It's her house, so it's that house. And then the landlord of that house on the corner has an army vehicle, a snowplow, a van, all parked in the front yard. And then, I understand and I have compassion for people if they don't have the means to take care of their property. But there should be some type of ordinance that says pick up the garbage, for crying out loud. What we have to worry about is rats, Mrs. Bauman no longer lives in her property, her house, but the house right next door is going to reduce her property value because it's so dastardly. And I was just saying, everybody in Rhode Island should read that book. So I give it with blessings to the council, borrowing it to them. Sign your name inside and then bring it back to the cultural center. If you don't, but is there, what can I do, or as a community, what can we do besides calling the cops to help these people out?
Well, we have city ordinances in place, and I kind of think, I don't recall those properties being on our list of blight, but the fact that there's snow covering some of the items, that they've clearly been there for a while. So what we can do as a council is point those addresses out to law enforcement, have them check it, see if it meets the criteria for our blight properties, and from what you described, I have to assume it will. And then we stay on top of it that way. As far as what can you as neighbors do? Depends on what kind of relationship you have with those neighbors. If it's just a friendly conversation, saying, that may or may not work very well. Sometimes it does.
They keep to themselves. You know,
Some people don't consider their yard to be a nuisance. We've been fighting for 2 or 3 years, a property down on the highway.
yes,
And not to say that we don't have other properties in town, but we do rely heavily on law enforcement to identify those. And if we don't identify them, they identify them, and we try to work through that.
well, is there, in the ordinance, if you have like wood covering a window, several windows, does that justify as a hazard for who's ever living inside, or?
I mean, they're boarded up.
Yeah, I'm speaking of the house on the highway. I drove by,
We've spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to
Many times a quarter.
make that not be the way that it is, trying to pick my words, and we have been unsuccessful. There's programs out there, we had them within a day, we thought we had the problem taken care of for the city, and all of a sudden, some dollars flowed, manna from heaven came, and he paid the back taxes. So now that stopped us, and there's a program out there for a lot of people that they apparently didn't come and research that. I mean, it was, I think, about $18,000, if memory serves me correctly. You got $18,000 free. Well, that house isn't support that value. So I don't know. It's just,
I know you have.
we are struggling to, but
The courts, I don't think are helping us.
I'm not helping. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Ruth, is the garbage, the trash, is it like bags of trash?
No, it's
It's just
true.
scattered,
Yeah.
and that's
Especially in the
that's an
backyard.
ongoing thing?
Yeah.
So I think, Rosemary, in my opinion, the only thing I'd say about what you can do to help us is to identify them and let us know, and we'll turn them over to law enforcement, because I don't think, we don't see everything, our law enforcement doesn't see everything, so if we are aware of it, now that we're aware of it, we can turn it over to law enforcement and have them do their due diligence.
I know, well, they were just out there picking, not them, the landlord was out there picking the garbage. But they're animals. It's nasty, that's all I can say.
I think if you saw a rat, it helps expedite the process.
Oh, good.
I'm not
Okay.
suggesting that, but
No,
I think the
Well,
sheriff told
that's
me
a
that.
health issue,
That's a
Yeah.
health issue.
so
I also-
once the health department is involved, then that takes it to a whole nother level.
Right, and I believe also, we have to look at the ordinance, how it's exactly what it's listed, but I believe Since it's a rental property, I think then that the landlord also gets cited, I think. So we need to look at that too. I think the landlord has some responsibility.
ultimately, so that's some leverage as well. Okay, well, I thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll
I
certainly
hate
be on
to
our
do it,
radar.
But I don't hate to do it because this is a great town. And, you know, in the book, this book, they'll say, you aren't supposed to judge a book by its cover, but everybody does.
Well, I would be happy to read that book, so thank you for that.
too.
And we'll pass it around and we will be.
And then
happy to
pass
return
it
when we're
around
finished.
Rhode Island, have everybody sign it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for any subject not currently on the agenda? Let's see who came in. All right, moving on to item number 2, Splash Island Adventure Park. All right.
All right, so I'm here with Ben Asa. He's our engineer that we're working with the splash pad. And we got this lovely umpteen-page packet that I sent to Tracy, and she thankfully sent it on. I think it's best maybe just to go through it item by item. If we have any discussions or anything, questions, we can go through it that way. I do want to start off saying I just was really discouraged last week. Thankfully I had Ben. He's been so good to us. So good. We needed Ben about a year ago. So he's really put things into perspective for me because when we started this, I was on like the first subcommittee when and they fundraised $189,000 and then they built their splash pad. Now looking back, I can see how they did that because they had a building in place there, which is $100,000, but I counted for that when I first started running numbers. And they had water and all those things running to it. And so I think that's where it really, I'm disappointed that I didn't know how to read this in a proper way that shows basically, yes, we can build a splash pad, but we can't get water to the splash pad. So, and I've done a little research. I kind of talked to someone that has some expertise besides Ben in like city work. And I was like, I can't believe it costs more than the splash pad to get the water there. I think I've said to Ben like 5 times too. And she just said, I don't know like how like one block of work or ground, you know, needs that much work, but I think it's because it goes so far. I mean, it just costs so much. Like we talked about manhole costs how much? We talked about this, you had some numbers, they were too expensive. So yeah, so that's why I wanted to come forward because I was really struggling last week, and so, yeah, that's where we're at. So on the first page is obviously that beautiful splash pad. The blue areas there are where the water will hit from the feature. He also put some like brown sprays in there so that if there's any like dead air.
I didn't get a color copy, so.
I'm so sorry.
Got the top one.
I printed it. I printed
You
it
can
out.
pass my along.
Sorry.
I thought I printed them off in color and I clearly
You didn't
failed.
want to reprint 15 pages?
Iris, you can see my colors.
Oh,
I pulled it up on my phone too.
so.
I have it on my phone, so.
Yeah, so that's like the front look. If we do this design, it's our tentative design, it's $167,900. So yeah, so right now we do not have enough money with the fees because, and we knew that when we first talked to Jeff a couple months ago, we had a meeting with Jeff in here. Jeff's like, you guys can build a splash pad, you just have to get a couple of those cat features and you just hook it up and you go. And so I was like, build a splash pad. And so, yeah, that's why we would cap a couple of those features, and then we can keep fundraising to put those in. So, on the next page, you can see there's the safe swap feature, and he said that you put it all gets grounded in when we build a splash pad, and they just put the cap over it, and then when we have enough money or the feature comes in, then we just add it there, uncap it, and it's good to go. So, does that sound right, Jeff? Okay. Okay, so then you can see on the bottom picture there is what we have right now in funds, tentatively, not that we'll do like that vertical feature vertical features run around $10,000 or more, and the smaller features around $4,000 or $5,000, so. On to the next page, we have an agreement with S&J Jacobs here in Rhode Island. They have their spring work. We kind of talked at that meeting with Vortex guy Jeff in the city that instead of opening the street up twice to get the water things that they need to do, that we would just wait. And then we're supposed to start July 1st. I talked to Jeff the other day. I was struggling with Jeff the other day, but right now he has us as August 1st. But he said sometimes other projects don't have their stuff done, so then we can move up. So, working on that one with Jeff. So, first item, number 1, we kind of decided that we need maybe some different, Ben put together different things for us on alternates where the splash pad and adventure park should go. And this is something we do need to decide because our grant for that DNR grant, which is $350,000, is due at the end of March. And we like to submit it early in the beginning of March so that we can have them look at it and then resubmit it if we need to make any changes. So Ben has the 2 alternates. There's alternate 1. And if you look at that one, and Ben, feel free to step in wherever, but that one has the building off to the back with a pond in the back area and the shade structure off to the right or south side. And that one has a grand total of $902,000. And then alternate 2 has a shade structure in the middle and the building on the south side there. And that one has a grand total of, I think it's $896,000. So, would we like any discussion, or do you want Ben to clarify
So we're
anything?
talking about $6,000 difference. So which one do you prefer?
Which
Which
one?
does the committee prefer?
I knew you were gonna ask that. I personally think alternate 2. No, Ben, we haven't talked about this. But I prefer alternate 2 for the fact, the shade structure you put in the middle, so people from the pickleball courts or there, and also I think it's closer lines for running water, which hopefully would cut down expenses. And then the only thing that's a little leery is we did talk about adding, hopefully get a grant for a playground to put down there. If we put the pond there, I don't know exactly where we could put a playground. So, and also the pond 2, or alternate 2, when the pond is out there, if the baseball association were to add maybe a field or something else in that area over there, that allows for them to have expansion. So we're not cutting in on their area. But if the pond being that far back, we also have to get, if we hook up that sprinkler system, it's a lot more line to run. So my personal opinion would be alternate 2.
And I'm assuming the only thing that will lower the cost of city infrastructure to get the water there would be having the splash pad actually closer to the street. Because it would
Cherry
be,
Street. Cherry Avenue.
closer to Cherry.
Yeah, as you can see in both options right now on 11th Street, there is no
There's no-
sanitary sewer or water running in north and south of the street, so that's the big cost provisions on this project.
Where does it run for the houses, for the residences there?
A lot of it, the sanitary line runs through the boulevard south all the way down to Cherry on the one middle house on that block. And then the water services actually come through the alley on the east side of the houses.
So that's been kind of the holdup. I think it's costing so much to get storm and sewer, gotta get these lines, we gotta get manholes.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of work that has to be done to bring it all into that intersection is where all the infrastructure is with this.
See, and we've been writing grants, help us get the splash pad, but really I think we should have maybe been looking at help us with the infrastructure to get it there, so.
Okay, how much money do we have in Parks and Recreation?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. Let me just-
Because they've been putting money away in the Parks and Recreation fund. I don't think we spent.
I would agree with you, Corey. I personally like the alternate 2 better.
Do you have a preference, Jen?
The reason I came up with the alternate one is based off the preliminary engineering report, basically. And alternate 2, we came up with that option just because the pond lays nicely in there based off of some existing under drains that are out there. And also it puts it away from that JV baseball field so that if people want to walk back and forth, they don't have to walk around. It's not really a high storm necessarily, but actually the field is kind of off on the south side of the field.
Amber, is there anything in here that's gonna affect our future, you know, that better than anybody about expansion?
Well, we kind of canned the idea of having the field there, you know, in that area. I mean, the school didn't want to put anything into it, so we, you know, so that area won't get, no, we wouldn't make anything there.
Okay, so either one of these would be fine, and one trying to affect
Yeah.
the plans that we have in the future down there.
Pardon?
Nothing down there, nothing here to affect the plans that we have been kind of kicked around.
No.
Down there.
No.
There's a baseball association, I haven't attended them personally, but the baseball association is for this and I think it's a
What?
good addition.
A lot of it is the pond, you know, to water the field. And we're gonna meet tomorrow with Gunner and Ben. And we were hoping just, if we could just do the south field with it, and if that's a possibility, then you're not messing up the north field. And last year, we didn't even run sprinkler system on the south field at all. We just, you know, and that pretty much is over after the high school season is done. So that, you know, the watering of it, the rest of the, you know, you have batting practice and that out there, but it,
Doesn't need as much water.
that field hasn't gotten used, so I think that's what we'll find out tomorrow with them, on how much it,
If I recall, that was a conversation when the city was looking at this pre-Splash Island committee. That, in that discussion, did we not kind of come to the consensus that it was not ideal to use that water for the main field? I mean, we had that discussion and
Yeah, there was some discussion about that.
using recycled water. out
Yeah,
there.
there's gonna have to be some signs you have to place and stuff, and it could be possibly have some.
But even on the JV field, we have to place some signage. I don't remember
Don't
the
drink water out
details.
of the sprinklers.
Just like a heads up, I'm pretty sure Deb could correct me if she was here, but with the DNR grant, that's part of the appealing process. And so the
So we take water.
it's the
Yes,
water is
yes.
what's a big deal because you're
Yes.
reusing that water
Yeah.
to go
Right.
to the field so that
But they don't tell us which field. I think it
No,
was just the
no,
main field
field.
that I think we had that discussion on that no one felt it was ideal to use the reclaimed water on the main field. I think Gunner was here at that time and had concerns and
It's not really
So-
broke down what the cost for the pond is, right? Is that separated?
we're thinking around 30,000 to 60,000 depending on
30, 60?
different things for them.
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, close to the 60. And yeah, some of the features in one at the pond, some automatic switching and stuff.
Tracy, have you had time to think about this at all? Like what are the city's options to cover the cost of that infrastructure and
Our auditor was here last week. Corey happened to be on the phone or something when she was here. And it was kind of funny because she was trying to find anywhere in our budget where we could take money from to use to do the, to help cover the cost of the infrastructure and stuff like that. But one thing that she did say that most cities, they have to have so much to cover whatever, but we are actually sitting in a fairly okay position where we could try to help out some.
so we could bond for it or we would it would have to come from
Just from the
General
general
our
fund.
general fund?
Mhm. And we, if anything, it would have to maybe catch in a couple CDs type thing. But the general fund overall, like we have, we're sitting in a good position. we could do something.
So this was stressing me out a little bit because I thought I had this, like I thought we were like a goal, like it was really bothered me that I had to come and ask for this. It's not what my intention was. And so I've been doing a little research and talking to people, trying to figure out a solution to, and there was something someone brought up about like TIF, taxes, something.
Tax amendment financing,
Yeah,
tax increment financing.
and so I've been trying to do like a little research, trying to help because I feel that we kind of put you in a predicament. And so, and you're also taking this over when we're done, so.
Well, and that was the comment I was gonna make, is, I mean, this still is gonna be a city asset once all said and done. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing a great job of doing it, I think. Merlin could talk about, we've done the same thing with ballpark, we've done a lot of good things to help with the ballpark and do things like that. So I don't think that the city of Rhode Island is against doing an open. I think as we've done with ballpark and other places too. I mean, you know,
It makes it a good deal it's great for the town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would be for Tracy, us finding a way of making this work. I mean, they've done a lot of fundraising already, they're looking at DNR grant. I think that, if we need to, again, it's a long-term asset, we need to figure out a way to make this happen, I think we need to do that. As far as the infrastructure goes, we've done it for other, the ballpark and things like that, we've got water lines and things like that, I think some of that should be, we could bear some of that cost.
And then part of the way, sorry, Dave, I might throw you under the bus right now. Part of the way of trying to help save costs is try to help use part of our labor, Dave, Dusty, to help with the costs and not have to pay so much of the labor part of it, because it seems like labor is more so high, getting higher and higher versus the materials costs. So we could try to help save a little bit there and try to use our guys to help out where they can with what they can do. Would be nice.
So are we, Jeff, are we talking, and Tracy, are we talking then about trying to help defray the cost of the infrastructure or the overall cost?
Well, I think the infrastructure is part of the Rhode Island infrastructure, so I think that we should be responsible for parts of that, for sure. And I mean, Ben could probably sit down and figure out what the infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, all that would be our part of that, and see what we want to do with that.
That was, because that was,
a good part of it, I mean, a good part of that.
Yeah, if you're going, measuring out to the edge of property line or from the streets, but yeah.
I was trying to look at that and see what, of the 900,000,
But,
what piece of that is,
well, but to Ben's point though, he's just saying for the property line, but that's gonna be a city park. It's gonna be a hard, so the reality was, I don't know if we'd stop at a city park, it's all park lots.
I think it's going to be a benefit to any future expansion
Exactly.
for anything the city wants to put out there. And if any of that would be sold off to a private party, then it would be assessed and we recoup costs at that time anyway, I would assume.
you're talking about selling off the splash park?
Well,
Sell it, sell
or
it
any additional land out there that's not, once that infrastructure is there, any future expansion on anywhere that's buildable down there.
Yeah, Dave, is there any reason to run it all the way 13th or anything like that that would benefit anything that we would do in the future?
Well, Ben's done a good job identifying everything that I'm concerned with on the plans and stuff, and I think we should be doing a 2-for-1 here, killing our water problem that we have on Birch and taking care of the splash pad at the same time.
And so there, I mean, there we go, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Is there anything
absolutely,
else we could do that would help defray the cost of this and take care of the issue we have?
absolutely. Good idea.
So Dave, not that we're talking about that, Dave, but can you just briefly explain to the rest of the council what the problem in Birch is and that we can understand what we would need to take care of to do that, the water problem we were discussing?
Sure. First off, we have to identify the ballpark, the lot out there, the hill where everybody watches the game. The water comes from Dogwood Avenue, 3 blocks away. And that water line was established in the 80s. It's a very old line and it hasn't broke or anything, but the splash pad's going right over it. We need to figure out what the plan on that's gonna be. Coupling that with the plan, with the problem of only having a 1-inch line serving a property on 11th Street and Kurt Weiss's house, we really should have a bigger line going out there. So you're looking at, okay, we've got a great $1 million park out there. We need to continue to have water, so let's go ahead and put a 6-inch water line down Birch Avenue. That should be absolutely the plan down the road, whether it comes next year or the year after or whatever. We need to go to that end to take care of our existing commitments out there. And the other thing that's coming to mind, with talking with Ben and with Matt, is we might want to loop that water main down 11th Street and qualify for a looping grant.
How about fire protection? Are we short fire protection out there because of our substandard line?
Say that again,
Are we
Jim?
short fire protection out there because of our substandard line or water out there?
Well, we have no buildings out there to protect, so we have fire hydrants in place, so I can't go that avenue. no.
Okay. Just asking the
Yeah.
question.
Everything's within 500 feet, yeah. So, but I think that's something to prepare for, but of course it takes time to get a looping grant, but that doesn't mean that's gonna hold up the splash pad from happening and tie into the existing water line that's there with a future plan of updating a year later. So,
And that would,
yeah, it all can work. I really think that the push with the splash pad is identifying that, hey, we should be really looking at Birch Avenue and our commitment to the ballpark and biting the bullet and trying to figure out how to take care of all this.
So how much of Birch Avenue are we?
Full block,
Full block, okay.
yeah. We have to go 200 feet.
Okay.
Okay, so, and the block is 300, so to get across the street and put a fire hydrant there, you're looking at, let's just call it 400 feet then, right?
So is that one of our identified areas, common like areas that we are on our list to fix eventually, or
It is on our CIP plan, yep.
that's a good thing?
At the top of the list for that? Or was it further down and we?
Well, it was
need to move
further
it up?
down, I told Matt, it's probably gonna be number 1 after tonight.
So,
We're
Teresa-
reprioritizing.
So we said that, you said you want to get this grant in the beginning of the month, but we don't have another council meeting for another month essentially. It'd be really good to hear what Dave needs and the cost of doing that to really understand this. But then that would put your grant in jeopardy from being done earlier in March.
I think that if you guys are okay with us going with alternate 2, that we can keep moving forward with the grant. Cause it changes some of the verbiage that they had put in there because they had the pond in a different spot originally. So now they have to update like where the pond is. So that's why we just needed to know, if you guys had a preference where it went,
Yeah.
because it changes how the wording of the grant is.
Yeah.
So, and with it being such a competitive grant, we wanna make sure we
Have all our ducks in a row
Yeah.
and everything, so we have better chances of getting it.
So I guess from my standpoint, I'd like to see what else the city could do to roll in with this. To see how much money we could contribute based on other needs that we have that could contribute with this at the same time. But I think it's gonna take them 3-4 weeks to figure that out. Speaking from Ben, also, I don't know if I could do it or not, but, I mean, I think we should have an understanding of that before we, too much further.
Well, I think there's options afforded to
I do
the
too.
city on how to help move forward with it, so it's just, those decisions can't be made tonight.
Right.
You
Not
need to
without
look
having
into
some
some of those
information.
options and see which is going to be the better.
So we have to order splash pad stuff in April is the plan. So that part of it, we can wait for ordering obviously, but that's good to know.
Prices are coming down, aren't they? No?
No. Yeah. Are you guys okay if we go with alternate 2? Is that okay?
I personally like the
I like
layout.
it.
That's my favorite.
Absolutely.
Told you, we needed that a year ago.
The other comment I would like to make is, as far as borrowing $200,000, we have done that on different projects also with payback and things like that. I would, in principle, I think that, would you need something from us saying that we'd be willing to do that if that was the case? You said you know the money is available, you talked to
Well, talking to the auditor and stuff like that, we were talking with Deb. They both thought that we were in an okay position where if we needed to, we can help make that.
So all the other options aside, if the city
Yeah.
just needed to make the decision to, this is gonna happen or it's not gonna happen, we could say, yes, we have the funds available to do that at this time.
But it's not us lending 200,000, right?
Right, it's
It's us
It's-
donating, us
more or less,
allocating
yeah.
money.
Well,
It's
she
not
had
gonna be
borrowed,
repaid.
she had borrowed on here.
You know, I
Everyone would notice.
I saw the word borrowing, but
Yeah.
I
I have to pick that up.
I
But
was like, Neil's gonna catch it.
What I'm saying is, hopefully they would continue to fundraise and pay for that.
Well, and I was gonna add, our plan is, obviously, it's taking us longer because fundraising is, I mean, we don't wanna be the committee that fundraises so much and we're getting there. But, we were hoping to fundraise enough that we could have a little extra in the bank, so if something happened, we had money to help.
Mhm.
Because putting this on the city's back, they would be extra funds. Plus, we really like big events, we love bingo and our board likes to have fun, so, yeah, we don't mind it, it's just.
I think that when we look at the city's options, I like the idea of the looping.
I do
the
too.
looping project, the looping grant, and,
We always want to look if we can.
Yeah.
So,
and there are grant dollars out there for that. So I think any of that is only increasing the city's value in the infrastructure out there as well.
Well,
So-
and today's point, that's an old line, it's a 1980s line, it's small, so I mean, we've always, that's why, I was pretty sure it was on the same page, because I thought we had talked about it before, so.
Well, I was quite surprised when we had the initial splash pad that they felt the 2-inch line was enough to run that initially right away, so I have no problem waiting a year, to.
Jeff said it was no problem, that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people do, he said it was no big deal.
Well, I look at your gallons per minute and it does flow, so.
Well,
I mean,
it's
it's
pulling
not-
out of the pond,
Yeah.
or whatever, yeah.
Okay, so, going on then, that's awesome, item number 2, well, that was just, we have a group that is willing to help us, they promised 13,500 last fall, and now they thought maybe even up to 30,000. So towards the irrigation
We
system.
like them already.
What's that?
We like them already.
Yeah, so, and then, if we do decide, with the DNR grant, if we get it, we don't have to put the water somewhere. And it sounds like the JV field is kind of what we're thinking. That's something we can always talk about too. But we would have to require a sign that just somewhere on the field, it doesn't have to be a big sign, it just has to be a sign saying that there's reclaimed water on the field. So yeah, yeah. And then I think we're gonna talk tomorrow, us and Gunnar and, or talk better, Gunnar, Mara and myself, and then about, how that looks with the pond and stuff, about water usage, so. Yeah, so item number 3. I think the only question there is who is leading the street work? And the street work of, kind of like the general contractor in a sense. Yeah. So, Ben, you wanna elaborate? No?
I guess it depends on what Dave can perform and what SJ and Jacob Sons are perform. If we're just gonna put it back to gravel until there's a paving project in the area, then you get some cheaper paving done, that patchwork.
Is any of that at the top of the list?
Olivia's got a project going, so I'm sure the asphalt will be not near as bad as what you're thinking, but I took that when I read it as how much we're gonna do and how much we're gonna hire out. And I still think that goes back to Jacobs, is that how much, I've asked Jacobs, are you interested in replacing our old 4-inch mains, our old mains in town? And I didn't get a firm answer from them, and I think this will probably nudge them in a direction, if they can do the work in their off season. I think that discussion needs to happen first.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we can just do it locally, a block,
Well,
Standing here stuff has to be involved, you know, so.
we've left gravel until we.
Oh, yeah,
We've done
preferred.
that more than time than not, so.
But that time of year as well, there's so many asphalt projects that happen that you back off of those and the rates are considerably less when there's other projects going.
All right, good, and then item number 4, we kind of talked about, going to borrow. Go forward, yeah. So I think that takes us to, item number 5, when the project is started, can we ask the city workers to help in order to help defray the cost of labor for the months of June and July?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll actually make a motion that we do that. I think it's a good project, so I don't know if we need to do a motion. I would 100% think that we should commit to that.
I would just ask that they oversees that. If other city things are falling on the wayside because that's taking up too much time, then we need to utilize the part-time staff and not hesitate to do that.
Thank you. And then item number 6, we kind of talked about just moving the gravel. And so, yes, that's it. Is there any questions?
Can we just go back, just, I gotta try to get some numbers in my head. So you've got 180 with you've got 160,000 now. Lions have committed some raffle dollars, dueling pianos, and maybe some more money coming. So you'll get about 181,000 by June. By Island Days, that's what we're hoping for, that's what you're hoping for. The grant would be 350, if that comes. 531, 200,000 from the city, if that is the number. If we would approve that, that's 731 out of the 900.
Yep, so then there's also a grant that,
So we put in another grant for the pickleball courts, which is around $65,000. Deb and I have submitted that, and so
Okay.
we're just kind of waiting to hear back.
and then we were hoping with other grants, and then if we could use the city laborers, that would, the cost of the labor for
Oh.
city workers, that would bring us up to the
Okay.
898,000.
Okay.
Also, I'm gonna talk to the lumberman and Hector, see if he can maybe help us bring some costs down too.
I heard he has a sweet spot for, yeah.
So, he won't love it, but, yeah.
Corey, can you clarify, with that DNR grant, did I read somewhere in here, I think I did, that you can only apply once for it?
Once a year.
Once a year.
Once a year.
So it's,
But if you're denied the first year and you reapply the next year, does it have to be for a different part of the project? Or it can be for the same thing?
same thing.
It can be the same
So
thing.
last year we applied for it and we did not get it, and so we're reapplying again
And the
this year.
lady was nice enough to give us a free tip.
I was just gonna ask.
Yes, yeah, Deb and Tracy have been working on that, here's what could help you.
Mhm.
So, but we can't touch the ground until we know if we get the DNR grant. So we can't even rip the tennis courts off, we can't do the trees. We have to wait until we find out in the middle of June if we get the grant.
So I think that to Julie's point, so if we've done it this year and we didn't get granted, and next year we apply, but we've already done all the work, then
Well, you can't apply if you've done any of the work,
that's what I'm
right?
asking.
So-
So we had to wait another year? just for
So
the-
what is the backup plan if it's denied again?
So,
Well, you might wanna just, you might not build the building, then if you don't get the grant, you decide to start the work.
so we could not build the building, which in the engineer's report, that is like 175,000. We wouldn't build the pickleball court, which is around 100,000. We would just have to.
So it's just
We
that
would just do
portion
it
of the
phased.
project?
Yeah, we
that
would for sure do the splash pad,
Okay.
but the other.
That's what I was trying to
Okay,
understand.
that's what I was, okay.
So we can build the splash pad without building the building?
Yes, because the ball field has the bathrooms behind.
That close,
That it's in enough proximity
okay?
that we would be in compliance of building a splash pad. We just have to make sure we get a water fountain there.
You
Could someone else do
You
the
can't
work?
drink the reclaimed water.
For the building?
I mean, could
We have
somebody,
one.
I understand the not breaking ground, I mean, I get that, but could someone else, with this,
If the city owns
The
the
city
property,
remove-
then the city crew could do stuff.
could remove, get some of the work done ahead of time, or would that be violating?
Positive on that after read that.
We'd have to read the grant.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that.
That'd be kind of great.
'Cause-
I know it, you know, when somebody's building, constructing, you can't do anything. You can't move a teaspoonful of dirt.
Yeah, and that's
Before the
kind of the
mortgage is
way
in
it
place.
sounds,
Yeah,
this grant sounds, from my understanding.
Yeah, like in our,
probably.
in the plan, we're gonna remove 2 trees, but we have to replant 2 trees because of the DNR grant, you know, you're taking away, or even 4, but that's kind of the difference, maybe.
And you said, I'm sorry, the middle of June is
When
when
we
we
find
will
out
make
if
a
we get it.
decision.
So last year when, or yeah, 2022, when Deb found out the week of Island Days. But we were on a high, Splash Island was, and we were doing all these things. And so she waited till after Island Days to tell us that we did not get the grant. So it's kind of around that time.
Do you feel that you've covered all of the, I hate to say deficiencies, that sounds adverse, but where we were lacking last time, do you feel like we've got it covered
Yeah, we've
As
been
far as
on
the
board,
grant?
has been,
as far as the grant being our
yeah. That we got dinged on some things that he previously probably shouldn't have for what we paid for. But now I feel that we've signed a contract with Egan Associates, is that, with Barb Marks,
Mhm.
to get some of the other stuff in the grant code, so we can get all that stuff done. And just our biggest thing is, Kayla and I have been working on reaching out maybe to a few more people about like, cause the higher dollar amount we have in the bank gets us higher to competitiveness, and so, I think we need to reach out just a little bit more. I've been sending out bids, which I've never done, and my husband was in Canada, so I just did it by myself. So he might not be impressed, but, we just don't tell him that either, and,
He's probably watching right now. Hi.
no, it's not all the kids. And so I just actually sent some out to like, for the plumbing, electrical work, the concrete, and like, hey, will you do this project A? Because like, our board is very like, we're staying local. We don't want the contractors from the cities. We want people from our area to do this project. And so, sending out bids, and then like, any in-kind donation you think you might do, please let us know, because we can put that in the grant, which bumps us up a little bit more. So the bids haven't come in yet, so it might be the wording of the person who sent out the bids, but that's something I have to get done before March 1st, so, yeah.
Yes, I would have, just one thing I brought up at the Lions meeting, and that would be if the Lions decided to put more money in that we don't have right now, like when we did the ballpark, the city had paid some money onto it, and then the Lions would pay the city back, you know, like yearly. And if that would be an opportunity I could bring back to the Lions Club. You know, we don't know what amount, and we decided the club that way, but if, the city'd be willing, you know, I'm not sure if you have the funds or whatever, that would, say if it was 30,000 and we would pay off, then, you know, like 10,000 a year or something like that for 3 years, or,
I guess I'd be interested in seeing how this will play into the updating of the,
Infrastructure.
yeah. And see how that looks on cost wise. Or we start taking other
no.
groups' money.
Yep, yep.
Well, Corey, thank you for all of the work you've put into this, and
I mean, I was a first grade teacher, like in my former life, so like, these numbers are so big. My husband's always like, I told you, and I'm like, don't count this high. So, thank you guys. Thank you, so, and also thank you for letting us use Tracy and Deb, and all the things, and Dave now.
We don't let you pay for it. We don't let you pay for it.
That's one of the things we'll probably, if there's some lights, if anybody want out there.
Can you send me that? You got me that. Could you send me that, we'll overlay it. We'll overlay it.
Okay.
And get some foot candles too.
Okay.
If we get that, that'd be great.
PDF or CAD or.
PDF for free.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Anyone have anything further for Corey? Okay. No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next thing with Splash Island is we just have to approve the resolution that, for the DNR grant. Approve the,
Second,
Motion and second to approve resolution 1-23, approving the Minnesota DNR outdoor recreation grant application. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. I hope it is a favorable outcome with that grant.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, all of us.
All of us. Yes. We did, maybe I should add it, I don't know. Ben keeps me in mind. He shakes his head at me a lot. He's just like John. We did, I should, maybe you guys might be going, I'm sorry, but like, we did talk about like, if we didn't get the DNR grant, maybe there's a different spot we could put it in town. Should I make it? Okay. And I really like the idea of Lion Park. Ben briefly looked at some things to educate me about like storm and sewer and all that stuff. The only problem is like, we get a manhole ordered for over there, and then we can't put it over here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're talking the city part, right?
Yeah, the city park, the Lion Park.
There's
city
some utilities right in the county road there that we could go north of the existing sand volleyball pit there and you can just.
What about on the yours property? We've got the yours property.
Where's
No, community garden?
down by the tower, down by the
I thought
gardens,
that was
Our
city
designated,
gardens,
I thought it was designated
Park, I
as,
thought.
park.
yeah, but I thought it had to stay as like meadow or something, that it,
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember
That
that. Interesting.
I thought there was something in there about that.
I don't know, it's just an idea I threw at Ben to make him,
I mean, clearly that's a community area and that's a great spot, but that was,
but if
I
you
don't know.
put it in the Lion Park in the middle of town, you're not gonna use that water at the ball field anymore,
Right.
but,
That's the
you
big
know, so, but, I mean, if they didn't water the JV field last year, I mean, which was good, because we had lots of rain then, but just a thought.
You could use the water for the community garden though.
True.
Might not lose that.
Yeah. That's correct. You're absolutely
Down through it, down the roads, Claudius.
I just keep making more work for Ben, probably.
Well, there's infrastructure there though. The point is, I think there's infrastructure.
Right, and that's, the
Yeah,
infrastructure's
absolutely.
there,
All
which
the
would take
infrastructure's
the cost from the city way down, you know, because all the things are there, as long as, is it like drains?
there. And I tell you what, I think,
Water and stuff.
But we still have our existing problems too.
True,
Yeah.
you're right.
so if we bought, if that's the case, I know when we bought that for this, I think you could go to the state and tell them what we wanna do. Even if it's metal, I think that's a question.
You're probably right, I didn't remember that one.
I don't remember that.
I think it was
I'm
something
sure it's just
about-
city use.
I'm pretty sure
Was
too.
it?
Yes.
I thought it had to remain
I thought it just could not be
like
housing.
wildflowers and it couldn't be developed as far as
Tracy,
a park, as far as a soccer
It could be
field
de- yeah,
or,
it
you know,
could be
but it couldn't
developed.
be.
Yeah,
To my
I mean-
understanding, it has to be for the community purpose. So, because I know one idea that has been thrown out, or thrown idea, is like putting a fire hall over in that area.
I'll be honest,
But I
I
have no idea.
like where you.
I do
currently
too.
I
This is-
really,
I do.
This
I
was the spot.
really agree, but I was just trying to, I was panicking last week and like, what happened? And so,
I would agree in a more central area where people see it as they're coming through town would be attractive. But we
sometimes
I
it's
like
also-
where the ball
I think
field
also
there
makes a view
and
traction though, also
right,
on the highway.
right, I agree. I like the quiet street, cause you know kids will be down there unattended or even attended if they're like my children and run. So I think it's a perfect spot for it, but I was just trying to think of a plan B if something happens that we don't get this DNR grant, cause that's a substantial amount towards this project.
I
So-
just like that the ball field is there, there's other activity type things, if the parents want to walk the track, you know, that
Yeah.
type of things,
All
while
those-
their kids are playing, there's
Yeah.
other options versus.
Right.
Already gets there.
Okay, alright, I'll be quiet.
Keep thinking,
Yeah.
keep thinking.
But in all honesty, it would be interesting if you ran those numbers to put it down at Lions Park.
kind of tried to make Ben do that too. He sees my phone call and I'm sure he's like, oh, here she goes again.
I don't have the numbers on that yet.
Yeah. But there was storm and sewer.
On the west side, and the rest of the, is you got that 4-inch main on the south and east side of the block. It's not what worked too well with the water, but it really looked like the county road most of
But
these
there's not
areas.
restroom facilities,
That's really
there's not,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think that will be an additional cost that's probably going to offset any savings we would have.
So,
So, yes, but it is also like Plan B is that we just don't build the pickleball courts or the shed until we have enough funds if we don't get the DNR grant. So, and then Plan C is somewhere. So,
It's phases, all done in phases.
all done in phases.
we would have the same problem that you were problem, down at your no, toilet bathroom. We had the same issue there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for all the hard work, Ben.
Yes.
All right, do we want to skip item number 3? We don't have law enforcement here to clarify anything. But since we've got,
Yeah.
yeah, we can move on and not keep them here any longer than we need to. So we will skip down to, the public works items, number 4 on the agenda.
You guys got my report. If there's any questions on that, I'll entertain those. Understand that, somebody want to talk about snow removal?
So I think that's on me, Dave. I was approached at Handy Stop 3 weeks ago that we were removing snow from the alley behind Handy Stop. And then at the roaster and at the grocery store, and we're not charging for that. But we don't do it for people in town that can't afford to park their vehicles, or we won't help them take snow on up their ground so they can park off the street. And this lady, and I don't know who she was, and I tried to get my wife to tell me, and she doesn't know, I tried her, she doesn't know who she is. It was very adamant that these people make money, and they don't make money, they pay taxes just like they do, and we are removing snow for all these people for free. So I brought it up as the council know that we do that for free or not.
Okay, well, what we do is we take care of the commercial properties. So, people that pay commercial properties and have commercial properties pay higher taxes is how this was explained to me 17 years ago. So the commercial properties always had a pile in back of, the roaster, the downtown Sheehan's there and stuff, and we've always hauled that pile out in that state lot,
That's
okay?
it, yep.
So
And I told
that's
them
all commercial properties, okay? And the Handy Stop, that alley's used commercially, that's a commercial property as well. I plow that alley. Sometimes people are there before me, but the semi-traffic up that alley is unreal, because there's no other place to park. The snow gets to be a burden on the end of that alley, where the state highway right-of-way is and that. And we do take snow out of there to make room for the semis to get through there, as well as when we're cleaning the highway. The state pays us to clean the highway, and it kind of looks like we're cleaning Handy Stop, but it's still the state, that's where the state put the snow, gets piled in the alley, so we're picking up that pile. As far as the grocery store, we have in the past picked that pile up before. This year, we have not, and that was paid for privately, so that whoever approached you was wrong on that. And that's.
So it's not that you're clearing their lots, you're just moving the piled snow that's been pushed up there.
That's correct.
Yeah, and like I told Neil, I didn't have a problem with any of it, I just think, make sure the council knows it, so they get brought to it, but we all know what's going on, that's all.
Yeah, and if you guys wanna change the way we do things, I'm all open for it and stuff, but we've got a really good system. I talked to, Al Osterfeld, the guy, a little bit, that this was coming up, and I'm going, well, geez, what are we doing wrong? You know, what could possibly be going on here, not knowing what was said, and the misunderstanding about, piles getting hauled out of the grocery store parking lot, and then that didn't happen. So, and understand, you know, that alley there too, we keep open, and we have put snow in that pile, and we always take our share out when we're going there, that we add to it. It's a give and take deal. Snow has always been a give and take deal, believe me. But we have multiple requests for people on private stuff, and no, we just do the downtown commercial property areas. And I do have to call out Sheehan's, computer place down there. They take care of everything down there, and we don't do anything. They've already got it all hired out and done. We put up a little bit of snow down by the school that we have had to haul out before too as well, you know, but, so I guess it's an all even thing. I'm very happy with our snow removal process, the way we have it right now, and so are Osterfeld's.
Just for clarity for me, the alley east of Smart Work, is that what we're talking about? The semis use that they come in, so they can unload there, they don't park, and on the north side, they go down the alley and unload.
Yeah, feel free to visit with Deb on
I think they
that.
come in from the south, don't they?
I don't know why they do that, no.
They come in from the south?
Do they don't come in from the south and then go to the alley?
They go both ways. I
Oh,
mean, my mom's lot gets a lot of heavy semi traffic trying to cut that corner, and
They used to do that? Our streets aren't,
I don't know, you know, the Henry's truck is always going through there is the one. The depends upon who's already in the lot when the Pepsi truck gets there, you know, and then they've got the chip vendor and it's used, believe me.
are those roads built for heavy trucks like that? or
Lots
is
of
that-
granite fines in that alley. The other alleys that we do are paved.
But how about the streets on the other end if they're coming out down by your
Yeah,
house?
6, that was
That's a heavy-
about
that's
10
a-
ton for the.
Yeah, we should have to divert the highway, we built that road for us. I have nothing else, I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, everybody knew what was going on.
Dave, I have a question on, as I'm going through your report. Some of the street lights are out and, they'll get repaired. Can you speak to the stoplights? There's been numerous issues this winter with those stoplights being out. That's MnDOT, but can you speak to what the issue's been with them?
I've got the MnDOT guy that actually does that. He wants me to call him directly instead of going through the sheriff's office and everything else when it happens, because he wants to know about it before he comes in. And if he's busy, he can tag it off to somebody else. But that's just, what he's telling me, it's just typical, electronic motherboard failure, one after the other is what's going on.
So in that cabinet,
Yeah,
And I'll be honest, we typically get the reports from motorists traveling through. They just simply call and say, hey, the lights aren't working, were you aware of that? And we're like, again?
that and the railroad crossing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, but it's equipment issue then.
Yep.
Okay. Good to know.
Thanks, Dave.
Any other questions for Dave? Clarification, anything needed?
Streets look nice though. Nicer than Olivia's.
They try harder. Here.
It's nice when we get a little bit of a melt, you seem to be scraping stuff off, so rather than letting it freeze down again, because then it's just, it's horrid the whole rest of the
Well,
winter.
and I shared with Bill just before the meeting too, that new truck that we got is so nice that I can stand and scrape at the same time.
was that really,
Oh, yeah, that is, we're saving money. I never even thought of that when I'm looking at it. Very nice addition.
And very much appreciated cleaning out the drains, that's, I mean, half of Olivia's flooded.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the Bolton and Meg presentation.
Alright, I think that's me. You guys are probably used to seeing David Baum here.
We are.
I'm Matt Miller. I've been working at Bolton and Mink for a while now with Dave for basically as long as I've been there.
Haven't been up here often.
Yep, been up here often. I was actually working on the 2018-2019 project. I was out here that summer of I think it was 2019, that second summer I was here. Helping out with when they were doing all the curb and gutter, sidewalks and all the street paving. But it's kind of enough about me. I got some stuff to go over with you guys and I have a few handouts here. You might have one already, Tracy. Give one to you anyways.
Enough, or should we share?
Yep, I have enough for you guys. You can just take one and pass me one. I got an extra for you there.
All right, I can see what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. So kind of first on that agenda there is recent projects. In 2014, that was the last time we updated the capital improvements plan. And from that capital improvements plan, that's how we got to doing those 4 projects listed on there that we did. So it started with the 13th Street project. That was a LRIP project, so meaning we had some outside grant funding for that one. In 2018, there's that water main looping. That was going about a mile east of town to the treatment plant there. And then there's the 2018-2019 street project. That was when we replaced a lot of the streets and utilities, and there's a number of blocks in town. Ash Avenue, just get my bearings, right over there, that block and a half, 2.5 blocks, among a few other streets. And then we did a seal coat project in 2020. So that kind of brings us to today. We've been working with Dave and Tracy about updating the capital improvements plan. And I got the map here. It's kind of rolled up, so I don't know what the best way to go about doing this is. I'm a big guy. Not since the last copy you've had. I've marked up a couple things when I've been working with Dave here, but so we have a couple of priority areas that we identified. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it, by the way.
Just a little higher, Dave.
Yep. I can do that. So the first priority is down on this corner of Ranchwood. Dave's had some persistent sewer issues that have not gone away in that area and there's no sign of them going away anytime soon without doing some work down there. So we kind of have 2 options that we talked about. One was doing the whole stretch on Ranchwood. That was brought up already in the 2014 CIP plan. But that was kind of shot down at the time because I believe there were some residents that were not in favor of that. So that got nixed back then. It's still a need. There is still some issues with the street and some of the other utilities there. But doing this one little stretch, kind of going up around 4th Street, that fixes Dave's immediate problem there. That kind of solves everything in the short term. It doesn't necessarily fix all the long-term issues. You're still going to have some things down the road. You're just, by not doing the whole stretch on Ranchwood, you might be kicking some issues down the road. But you do fix that immediate problem that Dave's had to deal with constantly. I'm sure he can speak to that pretty easily. The second area, and just so you know, I think you guys have this all in your packet too. Hopefully it's all big enough where you guys can read it halfway decently. But we have the cost of each segment on here. And then we just kind of had a running total of the cost of, as we each keep adding all those couple segments together here. Number 2 was on, I believe that is 5th Street, so that's just 1 block east of the Handy Mart? Smart Mart? And that is a water, there's issues with the water main there. It's a 4-inch cast iron water main. And Dave's had a break on that within, was it the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a pretty big priority there. The street's in tough shape, so the goal on that street would be replace the whole street surface and the water main.
Is that a stainless steel ban on it right now, Dan?
We band-aided it, yeah, in front of Dave Manderscheid's there.
Stainless steel ban?
Number 3 and 4 kind of go together, and that might kind of touch in a little bit about the earlier discussion with that splash pad. That's that block of water main on Birch Avenue. So existing, it's just one little 3/4 inch line that serves, I think it's 2 separate properties there, and they don't have anything more than that. So what we originally schemed with is running a 6-inch water main all the way down that street and putting a hydrant down the end of that. And then also making a connection for the future splash pad at that time. So that's why you have 2 separate numbers on there. Number 3 is actually getting rid of that 3/4 inch water main. Number 4 is providing a connection for the splash pad area. We also kind of touched on the water main looping. Dave's brought that up kind of pretty recently. We didn't have that on the map originally, but it's a really valid point because on Cherry Avenue, that's a dead end water main. If we just did the water main on Birch, that's another dead end water main. You want to avoid dead end water mains because water just sits in the ends of those pipes, and if you don't flush it regularly, the water almost goes bad. I don't want to say goes bad, but it's the easiest way to say it, I suppose. So putting a loop in there keeps that whole system pressurized and charged, and that water's going to keep on circulating through and through and through. Number 5 was, where did number 5 go? Yep, Cherry Avenue. So on Cherry Avenue, that's just between, I think that's 10th and 9th Street there. There's a storm. You want me to hold on that?
Keep going.
There's a storm sewer there that needs a little work, and then the street surface is in rough shape too. So, there's a couple other issues that Dave has had with his water main that I've kind of pointed out on here. We already have a couple of those covered, but then the other ones are on Ranchwood too. There's a 1-inch service that feeds a lot of those houses on the east side of 4th Street there. So what Dave brought up to me today is that, hey, maybe we think about running a 6-inch the rest of that way, since we're already there with the sewer. Why don't we just add another 6-inch line, do it right, put a hydrant on the end of that, and get water main all the way over there to help feed those 1-inch services. Otherwise, you have a 1-inch service feeding how many houses for basically a third of a block is what it amounts to be. And then there's just a couple of other areas that Dave has marked on there, areas that he's concerned about.
Yeah, 1-inch line. It's just a plastic insulation line.
That's a plastic line that was, yeah. We already did the work in the back, if you remember, right, Jeff, back in 2010. But that one was lying in between their properties and going, we're gonna rip that road up and fix the sewer, why don't we take care of getting the 6-inch water across this, so let's rip the road up again. Unless you guys decide to go all the way down Ranchwood, but that would be the way to handle that in. We've got some storm issues that we correct there too.
So I have a question regarding the capital improvement, Dave. I mean, looking at this, it reminds me of how long ago we did it, but where are we at with the maintenance and the water treatment plant? This been, I can't believe it's been 13 years already. It just blew my mind. But where are we at with the media, reconfiguring, all that stuff?
Well, I'm just gonna take away from your reading here and kind of give them an update on what I found on the water. I've been in a couple water schools, and they're gonna be making us take out different chemicals down the road. PFAs, you've probably heard about them, and we're gonna be required to modify our filter treatment plant down the road. Of course, everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
But
There should be grant money once we that happens.
the next 5 years is gonna be a lot of water money thrown at water infrastructure, and then you're gonna be going after the lead copper stuff. And that's gonna go back to my 20 blocks of 4-inch cast iron stuff, that, I mean, we gotta get that on our radar. The other capital improvement on the water side is, we really need to come up with a plan, you know, to figure out what we're gonna do with that water tower, because it's not gonna last forever. And, you know, so whether that's gonna be a 20-year plan, a 10-year plan, or what, but we have to address that, because that's the whole key to our system. So,
Okay, but every time we've ever had that cleaned and everything, it's in good shape.
it's in great shape.
Yeah, so I mean, we continue to maintain it, do all the things we're supposed to do. That's not an immediate thing by any stretch.
It's not gonna last forever, that's all I'm telling you. And, we got a giggle at the last deal, because now the National Historic Register of Historic Places is really putting up a fight for us to never tear it down. So, yeah. We need a plan.
How old is it?
It was put up in 1940.
World War II.
So, the only comment I have on this is, well, back to your saying, if there's gonna be water money available in the next 4 or 5 years, some of that, the cast iron would be included in that, so we may get some grant money, we may not, but we may get some grant money, for that, as same thing with our treatment plant repair also, or refurbish also.
Right.
Because it'd be higher on the PFA list at that point.
Exactly, yep, you know, those critical structural needs and stuff, that's why I bring that up, Jeff, exactly, you're reading my mind. And Matt was pointing out, and this is gonna be Tracy's forte, as to how big a project you wanna go at to make it known. How'd you word it?
When you go through the work to apply for funding, there's applications and there's requirements of that funding. And one thing with the funding too, they don't promise grant dollars usually when it comes to PFA loans, is what we generally tend to talk about. So usually if we just did number 1 through 5 on your map, plus, you know, say we did the water main looping and added that little stretch of water main on Ranchwood like Dave's talking about, then we'd have, say, I'll round it off to 4 blocks of water that we'd be working on, and we could apply for funds for. That might be worth it. If we didn't add in the water main looping and the little stretch on Ranchwood, gets to be, you're kind of in a gray area. Is it really worth it to go through the work to apply for funds? And if the funding is if it's a loan, are you better off just bonding for it or doing it through your normal city funds? So there's kind of the more you do in a project, generally the more affordable it makes applying for these loans and grants. And if you do a higher or a larger project, it might push you a little closer to that grant, to the point where you need grants too. They base it all off of like the city's average median household income. So up until a certain point, they say you can afford so much of a loan, so we're gonna make you use up all your loan. We're not gonna give you money because you can afford, you know, your citizens can afford this much more, or to pay this much more. They kind of have a standard number that they use in there for every city, basically. And one thing doing the PFA can sometimes trigger you to mess with your, or increase or adjust your rates for the utilities too. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. Dave kind of touched on all of his cast iron pipe, and just to show you guys what he's talking about there, on your map, there's kind of these green lines that are hatched. Here, on your next sheet there. Green lines that have a little black hatching. Here, maybe a nice big sheet here. So like on 9th Street here in Elm Avenue, you can see there's kind of a big cross of them right there. Those are all mostly for a few 6-inch cast iron pipes, so those are the older ones. And on Elm right here, just west of Main Street, Dave's already found lead service lines on there. So we know there's lead service lines in town. It's when they did these projects back in the day, lead was just something that they used, and now we've gotten a little smarter and realized that that wasn't the right thing to do, so now we're trying to go back and correct some of these. So there's the first question is, before we get too far into the funding, is what do we all want to do with this project? Do we just do these areas identified as numbers 1 through 5 here, plus maybe add in that looping and that little bit of water main down here on Ranchwood? And then maybe all these other areas that are these older cast iron pipes that will need to be replaced definitely sooner than later. Do we maybe think about applying for funding for those that maybe in the next couple of years, 1 to 2 years? The applications that we have to make for funding this would be due, I think I have it on number 4 in that first sheet there. It is due May 5th.
Let me ask you this, Dave, the Ranchwood, do you anticipate any pushback like we got the last time around from
I do.
homeowners?
I do. One of the biggest arguments out there, hey, our street is good, it's holding up, and it's still in the same condition, you know, than what it was. So that's number one pushback. And, we can take care of it from the other end, like we're suggesting here, but, I can't argue with the engineering firm's point that, you know, the whole thing could be improved if we went all the way from Main Street all the way to take care of it. That would take care of it. So we're never gonna have enough grade to go back and make that code, let's just call it code compliant.
Yeah, well, I was just reading this, it looks like our ends are horrible
Yes,
in your flats.
yes, that's why I'm having problems.
We just have to weigh that against the homeowners looking at the assessment they're going to be.
Well, and look at it this way, guys, I mean, when we did that back in 2014, you said, you know, they just got 10 more years out of their road. You know, I mean, everybody's gotta replace their road sooner or later, so it might have been a very good choice back then that they got 10 more years out of that road. But sooner or later, that road's gonna fall apart as well. And, so,
The question is, will they get another 10 years out of it?
right, and that was a question that
We
we
had the
threw at them
farm
10
traffic.
years ago.
We don't have the farm traffic out we used to have, do we?
Exactly, right, and no truck traffic.
Yeah.
Well, that's maybe what saved them, we got them another 10 years then.
Cause they're accepting that, or whatever, from the other side, not going around, right?
Yep.
Going down Elm and then going down.
Well, that, or just going.
Across the street.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a decision from the council tonight on how to proceed or to,
Yeah, more or less, if we want to pursue funding from outside sources for whatever we do first, we should have a decision sooner or later. I guess tonight would be preferred, because if we wait another month, that kind of puts us in a little bit of a crunch, you know?
for the deadline?
Yes, it does.
I'll ask the main question, how much are you gonna charge for the next?
So normally, if this was a city-only money, like, the city decides we're gonna fund this through our normal, the way we do every other street project, we're not gonna pursue any loan or grant funding through this. We would do a preliminary engineering report, PER. So that would normally be in the range of $3,000 to $5,000. I'm gonna let Dave give you an exact number on that, he's a little more used to that than I am. But there we'll kind of break down all those segments and start looking at, all right, we have some general numbers thrown at these for, like, this is what an average block typically costs. So now let's actually look at this. Is this actually an average block? Like the block on Birch only has 2 services that we have to hook up, right? 2 services. And normally we might assume there's 6, for example. So there aren't as many services. So we might see a number that's a little lower than what we list. Or something might have might be a little more complicated in the underground utilities there that we have to work through, and might be a little more. The PER is where we get to the detailed analysis basically and figure out, hey, if we're actually gonna do this project, how are we gonna do it right? And in that too, one thing that we do look at is the assessment rates. We don't do the whole preliminary assessment roll and assessment tiering, or that's not what Dave did in his 2018-2019 project. Usually we just figure out, hey, what's it gonna cost to replace, or what's it gonna cost for this homeowner to do this work? This average homeowner. Figure out, we'll kinda, like I said, we'll kinda nail down the estimated cost a little more, and we'll kind of start diving into schedule too, a bit.
So my only comment on that is as you were here, we have a Parks and Rec project that we're looking at doing also that would affect part of it, this whole thing. And I don't really know what, personally, I'd like to see how that affects, how what you're suggesting and what they're doing affects and how we can lump it together. And for us to move forward on something and not include that, I think is a little premature, since we know that's also coming down the road.
So right now, the splash pad is basically talking about being served from their 2-inch water main that comes all the way from Dogwood, correct? So it comes basically, you're feeding basically 2 blocks worth of a 2-inch line that was put in, and Dave was saying the 80s. If we do our project, they'll be able to connect right on to Birch or Cherry.
I think there's more to it than that though, because we also have a storm line or a sewer line we have to put in also for them,
Yeah,
right?
there is no sewer line that goes
So
down.
That'll have to come up here.
that's what I'm saying, so there's a little more to it than just that, that's what I'm trying to get at, so I
Yeah.
think that we need to know what their needs are. And if we're gonna do this, we're gonna rip the street up, we should be doing all at the same time, that's what I'm getting at. That would change the assessment too, because clearly that would not be 100% against the house would be also some of our expense also.
Yeah, I would like to see the cost estimate on adding that additional infrastructure in there. And then as well as the dollars, you said it was Elm Avenue? It's just these portions of Elm that would need to be replaced? That was where the,
So the block that's just east of, or excuse me, just west of Main Street, that's one of the areas that Dave is concerned about with his water system. There's like I said, there's a known issue with lead service lines. You already pulled one out of the ground.
Yes, and usually when the construction companies go through and put these, they're all alike, you know, so Charlene Dole's house was a copper line going through there, you know, but Zimmerman's was a lead. You know, we have a daycare facility on the other side of the road, and I'm very concerned about that, and we're gonna have to identify that, and there's gonna be dollars down the road to help us take care of that, and we have to get on board to get a plan in place to tap those dollars is what the important thing is here.
I guess my question is, adding that to a current, if the council would agree to take this all on, does that increase our chance of grant dollars, loan dollars that are out there now by including it in this project?
It would make it more worth the while to do the application straight away. And then it would,
But the awarding of the
yeah,
makes
it's,
no difference with that?
I think it would help a little bit, but so when you complete the application, they rank you based on a certain amount of points. So if you already know that there's issues with lead lines, that might help you. I think it might. But I don't know if it's gonna improve your chances of going from loan amounts to grant amounts. that's kind of a gray area until you actually really get into it and start looking at all the little details and doing all the number crunching, and it's kind of hard to predict where that number is gonna fall. The other thing too is if you do apply for funding through the PFA, it would be a construction of next year likely. You wouldn't be constructing this project this summer. This would be a 2024 project. So the splash pad would, if just for reference, the splash pad would be served off of that 2-inch line on Dogwood for a while. And then there is sewer that they need, the way I understand it, up there too.
Or the potential is to delay that project an entire year. I mean, that's what we're looking at if we,
No, that's a point that Matt, and us are trying to make. Even if you have to wait one more year to do the looping thing, we can construct the splash pad that we can tap right in right away without any additional stuff on it.
But the work on the looping and all that, how's that gonna affect the use of that? And of course,
I mean, you'd have to run lines this year though. In
The
order to-
splash pad's being built on top of this existing 2-inch line.
But there's no,
Your
it
question is
doesn't
the
need
sewer.
It doesn't need the sewer line.
Gotta have a sewer. Oh, yeah, if
It's
they don't
going to
use
the,
it.
it's going to the
yeah,
Yeah, if they do the
reclaim, so
bathrooms, yeah,
it
you're
doesn't
right.
need
you at
us.
least gotta put it in there ahead.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's what I was getting at. That's right. That's what we're getting at.
Right, so I just wanna make sure we're not delaying that
That was good.
project
Right, and
by
have to do
going
something
this
here and
route to
there.
do all, yeah.
And that was my whole point is, I wanna see what they're gonna come up with too, because I wanna make sure that we're not doing anything that's gonna affect that.
And I want to interject one other thing on the plans that you seen for the splash pad, and I didn't visit with Ben because I didn't see it, but he clearly shows there's drain tile where
Yeah.
that pond is, and he could actually use those for storm, his drainage as well too, without having to go back to Kerry, and I'll visit with him on that.
Could he use those is he using those only for storm sewer or the
It's just
reclamation one?
Just overflow for the pond.
Assuming that they're very good shape. I mean, I've always been an advocate for to continue to improve, because if we don't,
It doesn't do anyone any good to keep delaying it when something needs to
cost
be
one more
done.
meeting.
Any more expensive.
And we haven't done anything other than reasonably much.
Well, I think we've been on a good roll with continuing to improve, and then we need to keep it going, so.
One thing too, I probably should have clarified right away, when we were talking about that engineering report, I think I said 3 to 4 or 3.
3 to 5
3 to
thousand
5.
Yeah.
for the preliminary.
5 is probably on the higher end. I'm just gonna throw that out there now. I just don't know what Dave's gonna come back with 100% for sure, so I'd rather give you a little
It'll be
more,
7.
little wider of a ballpark. But if we do wanna go the route where we have to do the PFA funding applications, those applications, the number for the engineering report I said was, what we typically do for a normal city project. If we wanna go jump through some of the hoops that we have to for the application and fill some of that out, depending on the size and how we go about it, that might be about, say, $2,500 plus or minus.
Nothing's free anymore.
Figured I better clarify that before we get too far along.
Any additional questions? comments, concerns?
I think it would be interesting to see, with talking with Ben, since they're already doing the splash pad portion of the project, what his company could possibly do to help set us up for a future project here, and kind of look into that too. Because if they're gonna plan on doing this project, if they're already there and putting something in, maybe it would be beneficial to help put some.
So my understanding, the 200,000 that he quoted was really to bring lines from the existing
Right.
to the
Where the splash pad was. Yeah.
Well, I guess that was,
and then to the pond and,
yeah, I guess that was kind of my point I was trying to make, is that how much of this should we have for our infrastructure improvement? Because how would that take off, help that situation?
but would it help at all if that gets done right away? And then we come along in 2024 and do the looping project. Yes, they can hook right into it, but the 200,000's already been spent. That's what they needed
That's what I was-
to get the lines there, so.
I don't have Ben's numbers or anything. Do you know if his 200,000 includes water main on that? Or is their plan just to tap into the existing one there? 'Cause that's where you'd start seeing I'd imagine where you'd start seeing potential savings.
Yeah, his drawings plan on tapping the dead end on Cherry Avenue, and running the new line to the pond. And then, if that's the route that the city is going, not doing a loop, then we want to add a second line to establish.
360 feet of 6-inch. 360
So
feet of
he's
6
included that second line in there?
No.
No,
You know,
he hasn't.
because we're still going from Dogwood and we're already capping on Cherry to get to the hill. That's why, again, why I'm going up Birch Avenue. And I get to Ben's point, there's nothing there for him to hook up to, so he's got to count that.
So 250 feet of, 210 feet of 4-inch PVC sanitary, and 250 feet of 6-inch PVC water main. Gate valve, and ductile fittings is included in his. So he had some water main in this.
And there's a bunch of storm work.
Which is a fair cost in and of itself. So that would save on this project then, if it were already there for theirs, correct?
So that's what I'm trying to figure out, that's what we're able to know how the two would mesh.
So if he's planning on running a new 6-inch water main from Cherry up to up to Birch, then that looping that I drew on the map here, we wouldn't do that, and then the numbers on there are still accurate, because the numbers on there, 3 and 4, only include the work on Birch. We didn't talk about looping until the last couple days. So, just so you guys know, there's some numbers over here, kind of how we come up with everything. So there's cost, say this green segment where it says water main replacement, and street surface costs, that's your typical 20-foot wide patch that you do. You know, you just dig up the street where you need to, put the new water in, cover it back up, put your gravel and pave it again. You wouldn't do the whole street, curb and gutter, you wouldn't do all the services or anything.
I think we got lucky once, I don't think we can kick in.
And one thing too, these PFA funds, they're available each and every year. There's a cycle that repeats every single year. So we could say, just an option, the city could say, hey, do areas 1 through 5. We'll just do it as a normal city project, we won't pursue funds. But you can start thinking about doing an application for some of these ductile iron lines that we have in green, for maybe next year or 2 years out or something like that. Or we could say, hey, we wanna do all areas 1 through 5, and because we wanna improve our chances of getting grant funds, we could maybe add on these 5 blocks or something. These other 5 blocks.
Is it a minimum, was there a minimum of 4 blocks? Do they require that? There's no minimum?
Nope, there's no minimum.
Is there
But
something
your
else?
thinking is right because of mobilization. Everybody costs money to bring their equipment in, so you wanna do
Oh,
a
so,
bunch.
okay.
That help? I hit it there.
The more you do, you kind of get you hit the value economics there. You get a little more bang for your buck if you do just a little bit more. But you don't want to bite off too much, then it gets more, if you bite off too much, then it can get a little tricky too sometimes. But there is a nice range in there where you do improve your value bang for your buck. Pretty good.
And I'm not afraid of telling you guys, David Palm says, sir, let's go put it all on and we'll apply for that. Guys, no, I don't want that big a project, no way. You know, I can't see the city doing that big a project right now, but whatever. And he thought maybe we do a phase 1 and a phase 2, you know, just recognizing it all right away. You know,
Can you
that's,
do that with a PFA application? If you break it, can you?
You'd
You
have
can,
to do a new application. They don't necessarily, like, we could not apply to do a project based on, so we couldn't apply for a project by March to do a project in 2025. That's the way their funding works at that level. They don't like to see that. So if you're gonna do a project, it's more or less gonna be, that's the year you're doing it. So if we apply for these areas here and, you know, say 1 through 5, we add in the number 1, on number 1, we add in that little block of water main that Dave and I have been talking about, and say, maybe we add in the block for the looping by the splash pad, or maybe it gets covered by the splash pad stuff there, funds. You know, we could figure out where I was
Is
going.
there a deadline for completion of the work when you've been awarded a? Or do we- Is it 2 years? So we could put the application in for 1 through 5, in addition to a looping project and for this block west of Main, between 8th and Main, is that where I'm looking correctly? On Elm?
On Elm between 8th and Main Street, yep.
And there's nothing that says it all has to be done this year. Or would be better off doing 2 separate applications at that point.
It would be done, so if we apply this year, it'd be construction for next year.
It would have to be, everything would have to be completed by the end of 2025 then. If construction is next year,
No.
or everything would have to be done by the end of 2025.
If we start construction in 2024, if we have 2 years to do it, which I'd have to go back and check, I can't say I know that for sure.
I'm very positive it's 2 years after it's awarded, and then you can apply for an extension if you have outlined.
So there
2
you
years
go.
after it's
So
awarded.
say we apply this March, make that, this May, I think it is, we make the application. We could start construction next year on whatever areas we decide, and we'd have 2 years to do the project.
Fair to ask for a ballpark figure off the top of your head for a looping project? Or
For-
I don't even have it.
What-
Don't put them in that.
are you talking for
I'm
like,
just, I mean, are we
construction
talking an
costs, or-
additional $1 million? Are we talking an additional?
If all we're gonna do is say one block of work on here for construction costs, that's gonna add probably $230,000. But that's not doing the whole street, that's doing one block of water and fixing the surface at the top. So, here, maybe I could go through it this way. If we do numbers 1 through 5, we've just been talking with Dave about adding the little stretch on Ranchwood and add the looping. So the total amount in that table in the top left corner, the last number is about 1.169 million. If we add on those 2 blocks, it still keeps it under 1.5 million for the total project.
But it would be, is that number one only just doing the partial end of Ranch?
Yes.
Correct? Not,
Number 1 is only doing that little, basically that little L that goes from where it might be hard to see on your page, but where it gets skinny around through there.
Kind of right around the corner of that Mark again.
yeah.
Actually, it's attached. Go
Oh,
back a
yep.
couple more pages. They have it attached, if he wants to do. Right there.
If I'm not mistaken, the original project that you guys had brought to both Dave and I, when you said, let's do all of Ranchwood was going to cost over $1 million, and that's when this Dave said, can't we just do the end because of how big that number was?
To do all of Ranchwood, when we added on there, I believe that included all the utilities, so water, sewer, storm, from what I understood. And that was about 1.2 million.
Just at Ranchwood.
Yep, just at Ranchwood. And you can see our total project cost for what we have highlighted right now is still under that.
We don't have storm in Lansing.
No, no storm.
No,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have, that's a new we seen C900 main now there.
Yeah, we have sewer, we have storm in Highway 5, we don't have it in Lansing itself.
There is a storm,
Yeah,
catch
it's big,
basins
actually.
back by Danny that goes out to the field, the big main. Where all it goes.
Okay, so my question is, so we would take and we would go on Birch, well, from Birch down to Cherry on 11th Street. But then would we have to do anything on that section of Cherry from 11 back to 10? That's
No.
not highlighted at all?
11 back to 10.
Yeah, cause where 5 is,
yeah.
we would end up not doing anything to that block. Then if we went down from 4 to do that loop, we wouldn't have to touch anything from 10th Street to 11th Street on Cherry then, would we?
From 10th to 11th and Cherry, no, that's all,
Okay.
that's all new
That's all new, but then we would just move the next block over.
to Birch.
So I think when Dave's talking about adding on that looping, I think that's a good thing to do. It's probably the right thing to do. You're getting rid of what is currently one dead end and what could potentially be 2 dead ends if we fix the issue with the small 3/4 inch line on Birch. By doing the looping, you get rid of both of those, and you actually keep water flowing right by the splash pad too. You have good pressure, good looping right by the splash pad.
Yeah, well, and we have lots of opportunity to isolate them too, if we have a problem, so that's.
And then Jeff, for what I'm thinking for the hill, the whole, you know, because the splash pad is open, we'll just put a new line to this, intercept that right by the end, and then you still use the old one, so not necessarily replacing the whole thing to the hill, if you don't need to, but at least it's new out there. I think we'd be helping the splash pad out real big by going down Birch Avenue and looking at back to Cherry.
So does that mean like the entirety of the street gets like tore off, like the
20 foot.
just 20 foot? Okay.
Do we have sewer?
The sewer's in the alley. Ben thought it was in the boulevard. It's in the alley behind those blocks there. So everybody's serviced from their back door.
And one thing I'll kind of add to Dave's comments there on Birch, we do have that called out as with that orange color. So that orange color does mean ripping up the entire street and curb and gutter. But on 11th, where there's nothing highlighted there, we don't show any known needs there. So there we just do the small patch
Cut
right
patch.
down the street. There's no known issues with the street surface there, or it's in adequate condition. So there'd be no reason to do anything more than what we absolutely have to on that street.
Okay.
But on Birch, there are known issues with the street there, which is why we have it colored that orange. When it comes to the PFA funding, like I said, it's hard to know whether you'll get loan or grant money, but you'll never know if you don't get your name on the list. You're never gonna know, and just because
That's
you
why,
get,
yeah, I thought maybe adding in that section of the lead lines would increase our chance of grant dollars rather than
Mhm.
just loans. Who knows?
Well, and the other thing that I want to stress, again, I think Jeff and Julie, it sounds like you guys are aware of it. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure money coming down from the federal and state governments these next 5 years, it's already earmarked. And if we don't have a name in the hat, we're not gonna get it. We need to get our name in the hat.
Thoughts from the
So do
council?
we get, are we premature though, if it's what money's coming in 5 years, are we premature of trying to get it for,
Some of this is gonna be earmarked for the lead stuff.
yep,
Some of it is earmarked for, just infrastructure replacement, critical needs, you know, the water tower, the treatment plant, whatever, but we don't have anything in the pot right now. Our name, we don't have anything going on, so we're not even on the radar to be qualified for this stuff. That's why I think it's important to move forward with the PER and the PFA application.
What would your recommendation be, just to go with the 1 through 5 and then adding the loop?
I like your idea of adding the one lead street too, just to get their attention.
Hey, where do we have sewer on Birch?
It's in the alley between Cherry and Birch, between 10th and 11th.
runs north-south.
So, I mean, I'm looking at the splash pad plan, and they were running the sewer diagonally all the way down to, I think Dogwood, the way it looks to me.
Cherry. The line that you see going to Dogwood is the water line going to the hill.
Okay.
Did I fry your brains at all?
So,
So what you're suggesting, you're looking to do 1 through 5, and maybe do 2 blocks of lead pipe? Try
I
with
think it's just
4?
the one block of the,
One block?
yeah,
And then add a loop on 11th Street from Birch to Cherry, right?
it'll be over the, we've got under the 1.5. But I suspect.
If you're gonna add in that block of lead service line, that'll push you a little over you.
Yeah, get there.
You'll be in the ballpark, maybe that 1.6, 1.7 maybe range for total amount, construction cost. Just looking at some of our approximate numbers that we have on there. That's assuming, I guess I should say, doing that only 20-foot patch, that we only need to do just to replace the water.
So the police to start is then to do the PER, the preliminary engineering. Spend the,
Basically, you need to do that anyways, just to kind of know what you got to work with for the
Yep.
project. And then there's always the applications after that. We didn't talk about the sewer application for funding. I don't think that's really gonna apply or be worth it in our case for that small, basically what we're assuming is a maintenance project down on Ranchwood. But, for that sewer project, the PER is actually a requirement of those funds, along with an environmental review to a couple other things. With the TFA water, there is an environmental review for that too, but that comes a little later, way down the road when we have to do the plans and specs. And I'd imagine that would be pretty straightforward here.
well, this conversation goes to the point of somebody coming up to me and telling me that the city should just fund the splash park. And I said, well, what do you think about, I said, that's one person, and not that I'm not supportive of it, but I said, we have a lot of money to spend in this town in infrastructure and I think a lot of people aren't really aware of what it costs to dig up a block and to, we're spending $1.6 million. So, and that's where I was not, I'm very supportive of the splash pad, but I think we also have to take care of our other issues and water tower or whatever that may be, and so.
And just so you guys have a little numbers, of those blocks that are kind of highlighted in that green color, that's what was that older, small cast iron pipe where you might find some of those old lead and copper lines. There's 25 blocks of that in town. So when Dave was saying, I don't want to do that all in one project, that's a lot to do in one project. So.
A lot of bit all by itself.
So would your recommendation be to include just that one block in this capital improvement plan, or to wait?
You like the idea, right?
The way that you presented it with a looping, which gains point, and an identified lead, which should gain points, I think that would give us our best shot to get on the PFA's radar. So that's why I like the idea.
Because then we can almost hold off and wait on more of those dollars that would potentially come through for more like actual lead projects, replacing things like that.
Yeah, they're still putting exactly what's gonna happen, but what the goal is they wanna replace the service lines where there was known lead
Yeah.
impact.
Yep.
They wanna replace the service line all the way from the house to the street.
Okay,
And everybody knows that there's different ownership factors, and really the ownership of 90% of the stuff in this state just ends at the curb stop, but they wanna be able to fund the private entity to go there as a grant to get it done in
Yeah,
there.
so it's gotta be a grant.
41.51%.
Yeah.
You've seen it already, Jeff? Yeah, it's pretty exciting, but they haven't got it finalized yet, but
Okay. So, other than just doing this one block that's of higher need, we would kind of wait to see if
Yeah.
those grants come available.
you just brought up a good point there. It's a higher need on my list because I know that 8-inch line, that main one going off of Main Street feeds that part of the town. It's connects to a new 6-inch PVC line. So when I don't want my stuff passing through, that's the first block I want to get. So
Okay.
thanks for calling that out.
Done with the one, they're being.
Elm, yeah, and that's where we pulled that Zimulad service, yeah.
So the PER cost is approximately something less than 5,000.
Yes, yep, and I think 5,000 is actually a pretty high number. Dave actually told me 3 to 4. But I know we just talked about it, doing some looping stuff,
Yeah.
so I figured I'd give myself a little cushion there.
Okay.
And if you had 2,500 on, or any additional, you get 5,000, I think.
Well, before I would vote, I want to know what PFA stands for.
Public Facilities Authority.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I
I've been-
didn't
I've
say that
been-
right away.
And then I was going to ask a
It's-
lot earlier, but it didn't matter it's not germane to the decision, but thank you.
Yeah, if I ever use acronyms that you don't know, they're probably pretty typical to me and maybe Dave and people who do that regularly. So please
Everyone
call
else
me out
probably
on it.
Oh,
You
okay,
can just raise your hand and yell at me if you need to.
thank you.
So Dave, do we have sewer on Birch and Tenth?
Birch and Tenth. I'm going through my payroll, my brain here, Tenth Street goes north and south, and then it comes up, the sewer line goes up Cherry Avenue. And then at the midpoint in the block, it tees off and goes up the alley all the way to 10th Street, or to Birch Avenue.
So it's in the alley behind your uncle's
Yes.
house or your uncle?
Yeah. So Kurt's house, Mike's old house, all that goes in there, yeah.
So my question, and you know what, we'll let him finish. I have a thought on the sewer line for the splash pad.
Okay,
Coming at the end of that, we're already gonna have the street pool, if we're doing 3 and 4, we're already gonna have the street pool up. Instead of going all the way at an angle, all the way
oh,
to
I understand that.
Dogwood, why would we
Yeah.
tear up that intersection? Why would we just not go right in there and
Right
come
off
back
of
to the other?
Birch.
Exactly, because we're already there anyways.
Yeah, and that would just be an additional manhole out there.
Because the distance backwards to Birch is not gonna be
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
or to Birch is gonna be absolutely nothing. We don't have to tear up that, we don't tear up that
Won't
street
tear it
or
off.
anything, exactly.
I like your idea. There'd be plenty of grade. That's deep.
Yeah,
Plenty
exactly.
of grade.
I think we need to discuss that, because I think that, if we're gonna do 3 and 4,
They used
so we
to
just
pick it
go
up.
that way.
Oh, you
We're
got
already in the street, we're already there.
Very good idea. And I actually have a storm outlet right there to Jeff's
Exactly.
house too.
We do.
Okay,
You're just not here for your looks, Jeff. You're smart too. I said it on the camera.
Step one is really to move forward with,
Yeah.
with a preliminary engineering report then. You have to have that before any PFA application, so
Do we need a motion?
I think so.
do.
I'll make a motion that we, fund the PER up to 5,000.
I'll second.
Motion and second to fund the PER up to an amount of 5,000. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you want it to include which projects?
1 through 5, and 1 through 5 on this,
What about the lead?
CIP, huh?
What about the lead? One street of lead?
And then one, thank you, and then 1 through 11, yes. Thank you, Julie.
All right, any further discussion?
Don't forget the PFA application.
Does that include the PFA application? That's my,
Does the $5,000 cover that?
It might.
Well, PFA was around 2,500 you thought, right? so I'm guessing.
Well, I think we need to do the PFA. If we're gonna get it into this.
So you don't think we'll get it for 5,000?
If you need us to do it for 5,000, we'll make something work for 5,000. We'll do what we can, try and get it done.
I think you need to come back to us if it's not.
Yeah.
We need to do it.
Yeah, we do.
I like that idea.
All right. There's no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Yeah, if
You need
you
to come back.
grossly underestimated, you'll have to let us know and,
Well,
okay.
thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for taking up so much of your guys' night here.
No
Thank
offense,
you.
Tracy, but this is the longest meeting we've
Yeah.
ever had.
I haven't said
First
that to
meeting, you know, it's all your
everyone.
fault.
It's like this meeting is gonna be 3 hours long and.
Well, it can't because I need to get going. Ambulance waiting for me, so
Yeah,
to
it's-
go.
We can get to the rest, or I can take care of it if you need me to do it.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
Thank
I was
you.
hoping we could just get an update on the law enforcement report, just on the JV court case, and then if we can we table the nuisance property discussion
Yep.
till next month?
That's fine. So we had a court, I was hoping the sheriff was gonna be here, someone from the sheriff's department today to discuss that. But we had a court case with him in January, like January 17th, and he did not appear for the case about it, so he was, the attorney was supposed to be filing for paperwork, so he's supposed to spend 45 days in jail for not following the ordinance and cleaning up as he was supposed to. And then, but then he's, according to the lawyer, he still has another 45 days over his head to clean up the property after he worked to get out. And I do not know, I have not checked to see if he has been in or not yet to start his service. Or start sentence.
I didn't know that was. Okay,
In regard to the, okay, is there, I'm sorry. I was gonna go on to B, but I'll wait.
for the nuisance properties?
Yeah.
Oh, can we table that till next month?
You know, it's just, can I only just say one thing about the Rosemary's Point?
Oh, yes.
Can you work with
That's-
Rosemary Gleasoner? And just try
That's
to,
not commercial though.
No, that's more residential, but
Yeah.
just try to figure out who the ones are that she's kind of referring to, so
Please.
we can put them on our radar.
yeah,
The
please.
thing is, it's
Yep.
not telling the public works, it's the police officer.
Yeah.
It did, what I said was true, I mean, we do the best we can to identify, but if the city, if the people in the city say it, we need to at least look at it.
Yes. Thanks.
All right, moving on to decision to waive or not waive the statutory tort limit on our municipal tort liability insurance. We've done this every year.
Every year.
It's the annual thing, and usually the city will waive this limits and purchases excess liability with notes from them.
So,
Motion and second to waive the statutory tort limit on our municipal tort liability insurance. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Accepting donation of $1,049.74 from the Fire Relief Association for the new generator.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the donation and acceptance of the donation. Any further discussion?
Is this for a generator for the fire department?
Yes.
Yes. Just to pay it up from the Fire Relief Association. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Renewal for the consumption and display permit the Roaster has had, I believe, for the past numerous years.
Motion to approve, Neil.
one second.
Motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? Not heard, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Recommendation of Justin Lynch to hire Jamie Zamaram,
Is this like a part-time worker?
Yes.
I'm assuming part-time maintenance, okay. for
Like
Public
hauling
Works.
snow? Okay.
I'm sorry, did I miss it? Was there a motion to approve?
I thought you gave a motion.
Did you? Oh,
No, I just asked, is it like hauling snow,
If you-
mowing grass?
Yeah, part-time hauling snow, that type of thing, yeah.
Okay,
That, my understanding, yes.
So moved.
second.
motion and second.
Just one question, do we have like, is he wanting like a minimum number of hours weekly or just as needed?
Well, he just feels sorry for all the work we've been doing, and he wants to help, and that's,
Alright.
that's the way to do it.
All right, carry on.
He's laid off in the winter, I'm guessing?
Yep.
All right, there's no further discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I don't know how to ask it, so. I don't know if that's on the application, there's a question on there that's answered yes.
We don't do any type of background check, I don't believe, as long as they have no access to funds, et cetera. Am I correct in stating?
That's my understanding.
I believe we have in the past. It's just general. Question.
Is it
I guess we never.
we're
talked about
not
that before.
concerned apparently.
He's a good guy.
I don't know. I know him if he was,
Does it affect
I know
our
him if he was sitting here,
insurance?
but
He lives across from the park, that
I don't
Donex
know.
pickup that sits on 5.
which pickup?
He has a
That-
Donex pickup that sits
Yeah,
on
I
5.
see, yeah, I see that, okay, that's who the gentleman is,
Some little kids.
okay.
I guess I'd be interested in knowing more of the details, only because we have staff going private property, residences, reading meters, that type of thing. Concerned about any.
It just caught my eye, I didn't know if it was a concern or how we handle our
We've never
employment here.
dealt with it before.
Could've just been a past mistake when he was younger.
Very likely, I don't know. Would you like the motion in the second to stand? Would you like it having further information from the individual?
I don't know what our normal protocol is, if it is that we don't do background, and it's just a question that it just caught my eye, so.
But if, I mean, why do we ask it then if we're not ever going to do anything with it? Why do we not have it in there?
I personally be interested in knowing more about it, but I don't wanna, if somebody's here vouching for him and Dustin's vouching for him, then there are people that know him, I do not.
You know him too, Bill?
What's that?
You know him.
Not like really good, but yeah, no one.
David, do you have a immediate need for him?
Not at this time, you don't know why, I mean, we wanted to come on board and help with snow removal is where this initiated from. And, Dusty seems pretty high on him, and you know, he knows how to run equipment, all the stuff that he's been hauling around working for Genix, so I'm relying on Dusty's opinion as well.
I like the guy, so
I'm sorry?
I like him. It's Jamie.
How about if we amend the motion to hire Penny on a review of what it was, and we can make a decision on that.
Whose motion was it?
It was, I think it was his, right?
Jeff, so
Did I make the
second.
And I said,
Yeah, I'll make, just amend it saying, we'd like to do further back, we'll hire him, but further background.
You'd agree with that? All right, there's no further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried. And the 2022 financial statement contingent on the auditor's approval. Anything you needed to bring to our attention, anything that stood out? I just glanced through it, I didn't
No, there wasn't really anything that stood out. It just kind of, from my understanding, it was just pretty routine, normal, and she'll be here.
Should be here to talk about it anyways next month,
Yeah,
right?
next month. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
So I'll make a motion, we approve.
Okay, I'll second. Motion and second to approve the 2022 financial statement contingent on the auditor's approval. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There's no further business that this council wishes to discuss. We will officially close the meeting.